Alright, so we're moving the chickshaw this morning, taking the hens from where they've been in Goose Wood for the last few weeks, and we're now taking them over to the Westfield silvopasture so they can join the rotation with the goats and the geese. The geese have been moved on, so the chickens are just about to be moved into the cell, into the grazing cell where the geese were. So this is a bit tricky. We've never moved the chickshaw this far before. I'm still recovering from a bad muscle injury in my back, so I'm having to take it a bit easy. So Rosa's helping with the pushing and the pulling, and I've got my mum here as well. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get them into the field and we can go and have some breakfast. So we've just stopped here. This is going to be the difficult bit because we've got a bit of a small ditch to get over, which the ditch has got a bridge, but it's not a very wide bridge. So we're going to get through this hedge, over a ditch, and then we're into the Westfield. So we're just waiting here. The chickens are a little bit confused about what's going on, but I think they're managing all right. They're hopefully excited more than anything else. Always hard to tell with a hen. All right, how's it going?
Yeah, so what we've got to do is there's a tree
there,
so we have to go slightly that way, but then obviously there's a fence post, so we've got to go that way a bit, but then pivot and go that way. Okay. So we've put that pallet I left in the ditch.
What about cutting these branches off, or are we going to just try and brush past them?
Oh, we might just have to brush past them.
Okay.
I can go on this side because I'm shorter.
Unfortunately that's the rain on, so I can't have the camera out right now, so I'm going to leave you guys in the warmth and shelter and beautiful serenity of the tomato polytunnel while we finish the job. Catch you in a minute. Alright, that's the rain off. And we managed to get the chickshaw over the ditch, through the hedge. Got stuck a couple of times on some tree stumps. So, but now we're in the Westfield. So it's just a case of getting them into the cell, positioning the shaw, and then we can let them out. Alright, so that's the hens in their grazing cell here in the silvopasture system, and that went pretty well. Great to have help from my mom and Rosa because my back is still pretty fragile. so I've got to take it easy. I keep on recovering from my injury and then doing something stupid in the garden and making it worse again. So I've got Rosa and my mum to answer to if I do something. So I've got to try my best not to. So there we go, geese and hens side by side, and the goats have got access to a cell that's on the other side of that hedge of willow. So yeah, so this is the first time we've had the chickens in the Westfield. That's something I've been wanting to see here for the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest. I always imagined being able to move the hens around in some sort of portable hen house. And just now we're using the chickshaw, which if you look back a couple of vlogs you'll see us discussing in more depth. But yeah, we got that there quite well. I've given them something to eat and they're just enjoying scratching around. The grass is still relatively long in this cell and it's a little bit of a concern. We know we're probably going to get hens laying their eggs outside in amongst the tussocks of grass. The goats and the geese didn't quite manage to get the grass cut down enough here to a kind of standard for the hens. Considering hens quite enjoy a shorter grass. We're just going to monitor it and see how the hens perform here. If we start getting a lot of eggs getting laid outside, then we're going to cut the grass, especially around these edges where the tree rows are. I'm sure they'll love laying eggs in there. I'm sure it won't take long for the crows who nest up in these trees up here to discover that we've moved the hens away, and we'll see crows coming in and trying to snatch eggs from here, I'm sure. But again, we're just got to observe and see how this goes, being the first time we've ever done this. Great, alright, I think it's time to head in and have some breakfast and then we'll get on with the day. Just came out to see how the girls are doing after our breakfast. Brought out some fresh water to them and the geese. So everybody seems like they're doing well. The chickens are really enjoying scratching through the goose manure. There's a few spots where the geese decide to mostly do their business, which is either where their house has been or where they've chosen to sit during the day around their water bucket. So it's been about a week since the geese were in there, so this is a great time to now let the hens in to feast on any flies or larvae that might be on the manure. And they're doing a great job scratching through it all. That's going to help disperse the manure around for us rather than us having to do that manually. It's really great to see all three of our main animals here at Tappenoff working away side by side. So it's very quiet in Goose Wood now that we've moved the hens on. Yeah, it's funny when you move an animal out of a grazing cell or an area of the farm that they've been in. It seems very quiet and abandoned suddenly, but it'll give it time to regenerate. Now of course this is a perfect time for me to come in and get the chainsaw and cut these stumps down that I've been talking about. If you look back a vlog or so, you'll see I've been feeding the chickens their grain and layers pellets all around these old tree stumps so that they can start scratching away the soil and doing a job for me at making the stumps visible so I can get my chainsaw nice and low and remove them, because we keep on tripping over these stumps. So this is the time to get in and do that before the work that the chickens have done is undone by the grass growing. We also want to try seeding some of the area in here, because it's always been a bit patchy. It's been very nettly and there's been some quite bare patches of grass, so we've bought ourselves a very diverse sort of grass and forbs mixture. So we'd quite like to just experiment sowing some now at this time of the year while we've got no animals in here. But yes, a time for Goose Wood just to rest, for the grass to grow, to do a little bit of maintenance to this system, and then before long we'll be bringing back the geese. So the sun's popped out now, and Rosa and I are going to head over to the market garden just to do our quota of work that we need to do there today. We've got a couple of volunteers coming to help us who live locally, first volunteers that we've had since lockdown. So they've been coming along for the last few days now and again just to help us out, especially when with my back as bad as it's been, we've needed that extra hand. One place that's almost always hot is the Polytunnel, and Rosa did a mammoth courgette pruning day yesterday, so pruned off all of these leaves, and this is something that we found is working really well at preventing end rot. So by taking off any of the leaves that are covering up the flowers, so we get a higher chance of pollination. We're also getting more airflow. Rosa would tell you it's a very quite a slow and laborious job, but definitely worth doing. And look at all the compost material we're getting. So that's proving to be a good thing to do. Never thought about pruning courgettes much before. Everything's looking really great. Our French beans are flowering now, so it won't be long until we get some beans coming on those. The coriander is doing really well down here, which we're intercropping along our peppers and cucumbers, so we'll be harvesting that probably tomorrow for our third veg box. We've been quite heavily cropping the interplanted lettuces that you can see run along the edge of this bed. So that's just been removing the outer leaves rather than cutting the entire head. So these lettuces have already been cropped twice for about 47 bags of salad. And we've got some lovely cucumbers coming. We've already eaten one. We should be picking some for this week's box. Let me see if I can see any. So yeah, we've got some nice, reasonably sized cucumbers coming. More successions of coriander have been sown. Here's some cucumbers. So that's great. Great to have the cucumbers coming on. We're still sowing a few rounds of broccoli and lettuce and herbs. But yeah, everything's looking really good in here. We've got tomatoes coming on the house tomatoes that we've got planted in the small bed in here. It's a very busy place, the Polytunnel. I think this year more than ever with the intercropping that we're doing. Alright, so they're having a weeding race behind me. One on the wheel hoe and one on the oscillating hoe. So today is Thursday, which means it's a harvest day. We pick the vegetables today that are non-perishable, and then tomorrow, Friday, which is our delivery day, we pick leafy greens and things that might wilt and things that we really want fresh. So one of the things we can pick today is beetroot. So I'm up in our beetroot rotation, and you can see that we've got some mesh here. We've got a lot of voles in the garden, and these little guys have been having a nibble on our almost ready beetroot. And we put this net on just to try and protect them as much as we could, but it's not really doing the job. So we thought the best thing we can do is just harvest this entire bed, give our members a lovely bunch of beetroot. They're not the biggest it could be, but they're big enough. So I'm just going to take off this net and then we can start pulling them up. Wait all these months to grow a vegetable to discover that another creature that we share this farm with has decided to harvest it instead of you. And I mean, one of the reasons is this bed is right next to one of our forest garden tree rows, so we have a feeling that they're obviously living in here. This is great habitat. One of the reasons why we've got these tree rows in the garden is to bring more diversity to the garden. If we were of a conventional farming mindset, we would have a much cleaner garden without places for vermin to hide, but that's not our style. We've got to just roll with the punches and hope that things even out over time. By having habitat like this and piles of rocks, we can encourage habitat for creatures like weasels and stoats, which predate on the voles, and plenty of trees to encourage owls that will also predate on the voles. So in time things will even out and a balance will be found, but until then we just have to deal with this in different ways. Just wanted to show that we are getting some nice beetroot out of this bed. That's a good size, not too big, not too small. So yeah, there are some good ones coming out, but wow, these voles have really done a good job. Some of them very freshly eaten, obviously from this morning. I mean, one bad thing about having a net on does stop any owls or other birds of prey being able to pick off the voles, or even our cat Morris. Where is he? Where is he when we need him?